Welcome, it's Talking in Stations, your news report. I am Matterall. I'm here with a couple guests. I'll introduce them in just a second. I want to tell you what's on the show today. We're going to talk about the explosive velocity update that's going to be happening. We'll check in with the war as it heats up. And we'll talk about some of the ihubs that were destroyed today in Delve, but also some of the faction fortizars. And then what the Imperium did in return as they struggle to fight the war with PAPI. And then we'll have a correction at the end about something we said yesterday. It wasn't actually true, so we'll go back and revisit that. Okay, with me today is... Oh, and I forgot to say, we're going to go back to ESS and talk about, the dynamic bounty system, which works in conjunction with ESS. And talk a little bit more about that with the author of that article that we talked about yesterday, Murray Rothbardo. How's it going, Murray?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks for coming today. And of course, our researcher, Gregorian's here. How you doing, Gregorian?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Great. All right, let's get into this news bulletin today. We'll start off with the explosive velocity update. This is going to change torpedoes. Let's have a look here. Extra large torpedoes are getting increased damage, explosion velocity, and missile velocity, with other torpedoes also having their explosion and missile velocities increased and an explosion radius decreased. This will give an effect of a number of vessel types. This will have an effect on a number of vessel types, including dreadnoughts such as the Phoenix. Remember, we are in the Phoenix quadrant, so that works out. As well as the battleship Raven and Typhoon. Oh, and they say it right here. Speaking of the Phoenix, with this update during its quadrant namesake, it will have its power grid and CPU allowance increased, allowing it to have more high slot utility while still being able to tank and use torpedoes. And here's the controversial part. The Moros will also experience changes thanks to the explosion velocity update, with the addition of one low slot and the removal of one mid slot, allowing it to compete more favorably in terms of damage and tank with other ships in the Dreadnought category. And then it goes on to talk about the Griffin Navy issue, and also stealth bombers will get a balanced pass. And let me just read that part. Stealth bombers will be balanced in light of the changes to torpedoes, and will see their bonus to maximum torpedo velocity reduced slightly, and their bonus to explosion velocity removed. Okay, so that is the explosion velocity update that CCP announced today. This actually won't come into effect until November 24th. So you have a week and a few days to check that out. Let's see. Actually, 24th is this Tuesday. Yeah, so you have until Tuesday before this comes in. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Well, in general, I like a lot of it. I mean, the Moros probably this. I don't like that change, but I think that a lot of this is interesting ideas, and it will. I don't know if it will bring the Phoenix to nearly as commonly used as the Naglfar and Revelation, but it'll definitely be used a lot more, and I expect the Moros to be a bit less popular.
Yeah. What do you think, Murray?
Interesting opinion, because if anything, this is a very strong buff for the Moros. The Moros had already, outside of low sec, where you get the advantage of tank implants to add to your dread, the Moros had already become known as a ship that should be hull tanked, not armor tanked. And so this extra low slot adds either quite a bit of tank or enough damage to the point where the Moros pretty much outstats a Revelation bar a marginal amount of range. and completely outclasses the Naglfar, which is now pretty like before these two changes, after the previous major change to dreadnoughts, the Naglfar was like arguably the worst dread in terms of raw stats in like a capital fight setting. Now the Naglfar is like undeniably the worst dread. It has far less tank than any of the other three, and in terms of damage, it's now on par with the Phoenix, and it's outclassed by the Moros still.
Yeah, it's funny. Naglfar had a lot of favor recently, so to find it at the bottom of the heap now is kind of interesting. I think Loro Secco from Wormhole Space, from Hard Knocks, and they're a group that hangs out in Wormhole Space, basically said that this Moros change doesn't take wormholes into consideration at all.
It sounded like he and the other couple of wormholers who've said things like that were talking more about the Phoenix, because the Phoenix, just a couple of them can alpha an active fax, which is the kind that you're likely to see in a wormhole.
Phoenixes saw extensive use in the heavy brawls that haven't happened as much since, but my guess is that the buffs to torpedoes in particular resulted in, as he said, the Phoenix's volley damage with either torps or cruises becoming significantly stronger. And the Haw Phoenix is actually absolutely bonkers now. It was already the strongest Haw Dread. Most people considered it to be anyway, and now it reaches out farther than probably any other Haw Dread available.
Haw is high angle weaponry, and that is when a capital ship has weaponry that can actually track and shoot smaller ships, subcapital ships. Otherwise, most capital ships are too big to hit these little ships flying around them.
So I'm not really sure why they thought the Haw Dread needed to get that buff, although that may just be an accident of torpedoes. They've forgotten that Haw torpedo weapons use regular torpedoes a couple of times in the past and messed up balance changes with regards to that. So it would not be the first time they've done that.
You can still fit battleship torpedo launchers onto missile titans, the Leviathan and Komodo.
The Leviathan is still okay. It's a secret.
All right. So those are some quick takes on this. You'll hear more people talking about it. I believe, has it gotten a mixed review? How are people discussing it? Favorably or unfavorably, or is it a mix? What have you been hearing?
I don't think people mind too much either way. I can't speak for low-sec, but at least for null-sec applications, I mean, it makes the Moros a little silly compared to some of the others in terms of the raw tank to DPS ratio that it can put out. It definitely outclasses a Revelation, which it's been a long time since other Dreads outclassed the Revelation.
Right. That's been the workhorse in the Dreadnought family for a while.
Doesn't the Moros... Doesn't this mean that it loses out on a tracking computer, which the Moros generally seems to need more than the other dreadnoughts?
Yes, but properly fit, you're losing your third tracking computer, which doesn't do a whole lot compared to the first two, thanks to stacking bonuses.
Yeah, diminishing returns.
And there's some other tricks, but
all right.
Suffice to say, the Moros' range compared to the Revelation is not. It is less, but it's not less by enough that it's a big deal.
What do you guys think of the torpedo for stealth bombers? Stealth bombers are a big part of EVE Online, and they have been for the last few years. Are there any changes there, good or bad?
Well, it looks to me like they enhanced the the weapons as a whole, and then tried to, since they realized that stealth bombers would be crazy powerful if they just left their hull bonuses alone, they tried to bring them back to keep them in roughly the same place. So now that they have slightly longer range and their application isn't as good, but for battleship,
if you're shooting capitals with them, it won't matter. But at the very least, it won't be bombers deleting like random, like, nanogang subcaps that are flying around, because that's not what they should be doing.
So it looks like they took the torpedoes and buffed those, but they needed to keep the stealth bomber where it was, so they nerfed the stealth bomber's relationship to torpedoes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
That's pretty much what they did.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, missiles, Murray, maybe you can explain this. How do missiles work, and why are they different than other types of ordnance or charges?
So missiles are the only weapon system in the game that has a delayed impact. So this has a lot of different applications and little details that go into it. But missiles act like you would expect them to in the real world, where you launch them, they fly until they run out of fuel, and if they reach the target before they run out of fuel, they explode. Every other weapon system in the game, you click the button and damage is instantly applied. This means that you can do stuff like kite away from an enemy, and their guns will not reach you, but your missiles shoot farther because they're chasing your missiles, essentially. It means somebody can outrun your missiles by going so fast that your missiles run out of fuel before you hit them. And there's a lot of little things. But in general, missiles are probably the most unique of the regular Empire weapon systems.
Yeah, and I think they're very effective against larger targets because they have splash damage, which explodes in radius. Sorry?
They do not.
I think they had that a long time ago, but they definitely don't have it anymore.
Oh, okay. So, scratch that. It's been a while. But what
like that 2004 change?
They have explosion radius, but that's something different. That's if your ship is smaller than that explosion radius, you don't take the full force of the hit because it's spread across that radius.
Okay, maybe that's what I was trying to describe. Thanks for saving me, by the way. Where they're basically better against bigger targets. So bombers against battleships, very effective. Torpedo bombers, that is. I think that's the Goku fleet and the new variation of Goku fleet that bounces around. It's called...
the Stuka?
Stukas, yeah. So those are two kind of like philosophies of bombers. Normally bombers are cloaked up.
Stuka fleet's dead because command destroyers don't work like they used to.
That's a good point. Yeah, Stuka is no longer as effective as it used to be. We can explain all this if we have a second here. But bombers normally are stealth ships. They stay hidden. You can't see them. You can't detect them. They uncloak, and then they have a bomb that they project for 30,000 kilometers, and then it explodes in a big old radius. And that's how they're most effective. So you get 5 or 6 or 7 of those together, and that's one wave, and then you put 2 or 3 waves together, and you can really do a lot of damage in a whole area of effect. That's how bombers are normally used. But there's also a torpedo variation that doesn't use the bomb, or it doesn't use it as a secondary weapon. It actually uses torpedoes, and if you get enough of them around, the bombers can actually send so many torpedoes towards a bigger ship, like a battleship, that it can wipe it out pretty quickly. And the fact that stealth bombers can move through blops gives them tactical positioning advantages as well. Plus, they're small frigates and they can move around. So these are some of the changes some of the reasons that the bomber has been popular for a while. But missiles haven't been that popular, have they, in the last few years?
Missiles missiles have always been something that people use in certain capacities. Heavy missile doctrines have been pretty popular in the past year. It helps that they got a minor buff back in last November, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, a couple of ships that use them have also gotten buffs.
Yeah.
Cruise missiles are still in use pretty intermittently as an alpha doctrine. But a lot of close range missile systems, especially torpedoes, have tended to get a bad rap because they have pretty bad application. And torpedoes in particular also have a really bad fitting room. So trying to fit torpedoes on a battleship plus enough application to actually make the torpedoes hit things, suddenly you had a ship that wasn't very good.
Yeah. Those are big. They're not the usual charges. Okay. So anyway, we'll see some upgrades here to torpedoes, especially the dreadnought use case for those in this expansion. That's coming to you this Tuesday. So look out for that. All right,
Yeah,
let's go ahead and wrap up.
the big thing I'm wondering is in a lot of the low sec dread fights, because Revelation with tank implants is the resistance bonus is so much more of an advantage than what you can get with other gun dreadnoughts. They fit projectile and hybrid turrets onto some Revelations for to make it so you can't just tank EM and thermal. So I want to know if, despite the disadvantages of delayed application and things like that, the Phoenixes with their tank implants, which came out a bit less than a year ago, will take the place of that in the low sec meta.
And that's a question for somebody who actually lives there. I haven't done much theory crafting with implanted dreads because I don't use them. In theory, the Phoenix gets a lot out of this patch because the Phoenix gets to take advantage of the 20% or 10%. I think it's 10% damage boost to XL torpedoes. And then they also, because of the improved application of XL torps, they can drop what you have to have a missile guidance computer in your mid slots for range and precision. And you can drop that because they buffed those stats for XL torps as well, which gives you another mid slot for tank.
Okay.
So,
All right. So we'll look at theory and we'll talk about this a couple times this week before it actually hits. And then we'll go back and review once it hits, see what people are actually doing. Let's move on, Marie, to something that you have a lot of knowledge about, and that is ESS. You wrote something in Reddit about it. It says ESS/DBS and you, managing your systems properly. I should say that ESS is encounter surveillance system and DBS is dynamic bounty system. And they are two different things, but they kind of work together. You want to tell us what your article is about?
so I do a fair bit of subcap ratting, or I did, if I had kind of spare time or I had a couple accounts that were free while I was doing other things. It was nice pocket change, helped to pay for subscriptions. So I figured I would sit down, and because I have access to some systems that aren't super heavily used, actually go and test what the kind of different mechanics and triggers were for the dynamic bounty system in the ESS. And so the article is basically just most of the things that I found out about them, namely at what kind of level of ratting does the dynamic bounty system start to shift downward. So the bonus percentage of income that you get when a system is kind of regular will tick down after you do more than 500 mil worth of ratting in a day in a system. And how fast that regens or degenerates if it's above or below 115%, and roughly how much the system index will change based on how much is killed in a system.
Right. And so you came out with a number, 500 million?
Yeah, it's not exact. It's somewhere between 400 and like 550. I don't get paid enough to bother testing any more exact than that. But I think the most important thing that I found is that a lot of the methods that people were describing for like how they would manage the dynamic bounty system when they were theory crafting about it, weeks or months ago when this was first mentioned, don't work. So the first one, which is like a classic crop rotation, right? Like I'm just going to really farm this one system and then I'll go farm another system while that system regenerates. That doesn't work because the amount of time it takes for a system to regenerate back up to 115% from even a single day is ratting is weeks and weeks and weeks.
Oh.
It's like 45 days or something silly. So
you can't just go next door for a day or two.
You would need like a full region and rotate through a single system each day, which would be terrible. Yeah. Like you can't do that with an alliance. So that's kind of off the table as an option, as in it's completely off the table. The other option is, some kind of artificial fertilizer, right? Which is a lot of people were saying like, oh, people figure out how to game the system. Mm-hmm. And, you'd kill your own ships or suicide your own stuff in system in order to push up the DBS. Well, that would be prohibitively expensive. You would need to kill a lot of your own stuff. And even if you price manipulated some like reaction formula or something to artificially inflate the value of what you were killing, it would probably not be very efficient.
Right. Well, that is an interesting problem. If it takes weeks for it to recover, you would need to fertilize the soil, as you call it. And I like that analogy because what you're doing is you're bringing PvP and destroying actual ships, and that makes those diminishing returns go back to normal and sometimes get even bonused. So,
well, the problem with that is I can't make people come fight me, right?
Well, that's what the ESS is there to attract people to your area.
Yes, but there's no guarantee that anybody shows up on any given day. Mm-hmm. And the amount of stuff I would need to kill every day to counteract 7% of downtick, there's no guarantee that the people who are going to show up are going to generously show up in 5 bill worth of ships for me.
That's true, yeah.
They might show up in T1 cruisers, and I don't really think I can kill 500 T1 cruisers in a day in a single system.
So do you think...
odds of that happening are unlikely.
Do you think that so everybody's over-ratted systems are going to go down in their production value, how much money you can get out of those systems. And some of those systems are going to be, people are going to want to raid them to steal the ESS that's in there. But do you think overall the system is actually going to depress, like go down overall? Because these are like push and pull mechanics. And it seems like it's mostly going to be
I think people are going to pretty quickly realize that the only way to keep the DBS at a level that's still like worth ratting is to just keep ratting under that 500 mil limit per day. And that's what they're going to do.
Right.
They're going to just, rat for an hour and a half per day per system and call it a day. And that'll be it.
And that way they don't get diminishing returns.
They won't get the diminishing returns, but then there's just not a whole lot of activity in space, right? If every system in the game is only active for 2 or 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
Particularly in like multi-time zone alliances.
But you also
or test, where throughout the day you might see some Europeans use the system, and some Americans use the system. Well, if the Europeans ratted in that system today, Americans are shit out of luck.
Yeah, Russians were first. Well, what it does is it gives you another tactic to spoil somebody else's land. So you can go over there and while they're not there, rat away and lower their stuff.
Yeah, maybe.
This is akin to what Hilmar was saying, where he was dreaming about a day where you could, where a certain amount of ratting created pollution, and you could actually export that pollution to somebody else's territory, and it's kind of like stepping on their face, like you're dumping your trash into somebody else's yard, And
I mean,
this kind of similar to that.
the main problem with that, right, is that ratting is not a mandatory activity. Well, it is if you want to keep up ADMs, but ratting is not an activity that you have to do for money. There are other options. There are abyssals, there's missions, there's burners, there's wormholes, there's all sorts of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if ratting is going to be converted from the super passive and AFK activity that it was into something that's more active, because I need to manage which systems I'm ratting in, I need to fight people who are showing up to try and steal the ESS money, and etc., etc. Now I look at ratting compared to other like active ISK making opportunities, and ratting is making me less. I can't make as much because I'm limited by the system caps, and I'm just gonna go do something else.
Yeah, I think that was one of the main.
Mine ice or run missions or do abyssals or whatever. I'm just gonna say I want this amount of money to go do whatever I want to do in Eve. I'm gonna get that money in the most efficient way possible. This is not the most efficient way possible anymore.
Right. All right. So that's probably one of the things they were trying to do is to spread that out and look at other options. I think we saw this coming a long time ago. At least Ashtarothi and I talked about this. NPCs and missions and environmental work in HiSec specifically was going to get more important, and the stuff that was out in nullsec that was away from keyboard kind of gameplay was going to become less lucrative. Like we could call that a long time ago, and it seems that's very much what's happening here. And also the bot work that CCP is trying to do to disrupt people's automation gameplay with bots and stuff. They're trying to make that really hard to do. Okay, thanks, Marie. Appreciate that. You can stick around if you like. We're going to go on to the war report.
All
right, we'll start off with the big story today is 11 ihubs captured in Delve and what's called fake Quarius, which is Quarius that kind of runs into Delve, including the entirety of the constellation which contains the former Imperium capital staging of DTAC-W and T5Z, the system directly adjacent to Imperium's overall capital 1DQ. It may be a former capital at this point because they have retreated into 3 constellations in the north. We'll take you there now to see what that looks like.
Yeah, they haven't officially moved subcapital staging out of 1DQ though. When they declared that E30I is Helm's Deep, they just moved DTAC-W over to there.
Yeah. So we're talking about this system here. I'll highlight it for you. That's the system where they are gate camping it so nobody can make it back here because this is all jammed, so you can't jump into it from somewhere else, which means you have to come through this system, and to do that you have to get past their gate camp. And that's their strategy right now. It literally is blocking the gates to the keep after all the lands have been scorched, essentially. And right now their front yard is being scorched because 11 ihubs is a very big day for Test and their allies in PAPI here. You can see DTAC-W now belongs to Test as far as the ihub. T5Z is right here, and it's right next to 1DQ, which is here, and this constellation will soon fall. This is where really nice ratting and NPC stuff, mining even, was popular in Delve. That's one of those systems. And it looks like they'll probably extend into KEE and beyond pretty soon. They have those gateways both open. But this whole lower part of Delve, this is basically Delve core, is up for grabs. The famed system of NOL is taken now by NC. It looks like that ihub is going to stay in their possession. But if we look over here, there is a little bit of daylight. Of course, the daylight is gone already, but KTAC-6 was an ihub that was destroyed by the Imperium, which means it reset their clock in order to put a jammer on that system. So their ihub is starting now at 1 or 2 days, and they'll have to tick up to 35 days before they can put a Sino jammer in that system. And at that point, if they want to, they can assault a keep star that served as their midpoint to Quarius. that was in that system. So that Keepstar's not coming down anytime soon. It'll be 30 days. It doesn't seem like Keepstars are the priority, however. This is very much an ihub fight, and that's where all the body blows are. But that's not all. Today, we also saw Prometheus Prometheus faction Fortizar went down. We'll generate this battle report for you. Oops.
There were two Prometheus Fortizars that went down today. One in Period Basis and one in Delve.
Yeah. So the first one is in JTAC LPX. That's let's see if that's this one. Yes, see here in Delve. So that Prometheus went down. That one's actually not the first one. That was the second one that just went down a few minutes ago. And this one was taken out by, it looks like, a Vanguard. That's a Vulture. Vultures, really? They're flying Vultures?
No, those are the Lynx boats.
Yeah, Vultures are the Lynx ships. It was...
Yeah, that many Lynx ships, huh? Okay. Basilisk, those are logistics. Here
that's
they are.
3 different fleets of Lynx ships. Horde, PL, and Brave.
Oh, there's a lot of them. Look at that. No wonder that was taken down without any kind of defense. So this is mostly Eagles. And this one was taken down, I believe, by, Dracovax. And also Jackdaws here. But it looks like NCPL and Horde were in Jackdaws.
No, NCPL and Reckless Contingency, which is they're another alliance which lives out of Malpay and forms up in fleets with NC and PL.
Technically, their ticker is Recon.
Oh, so. Recon, yeah. Oops. Sorry, Recon. I know their CEO. Also, tests were the ones in the Dracovax. Neither one of these were contested. You could see why. That's pretty overwhelming there. So that's more bad news for the Imperium. Their ihubs are being taken and their structures are being destroyed. Yesterday we reported on 2 Satios and a Tatara that went down, and it's just getting ravaged. But the Imperium is not dead yet, and they are fighting back, mostly in Esoteria, I believe. But the Imperium, again, did manage to take KTAC 6 and save that, or at least reset that. So that was a victory for them. But the Bastion and the Initiative and the Imperium-friendly Russian alliances, mostly from Stain, like Red Alliance and then Stain Russians, were fighting Legacy in Esoteria, and with some success. We can see here one of the fleets was an Abaddon fleet that took some bait. I don't know if it was Red Alliance that baited them, but that was an Abaddon fleet from Army of Mangoes, which is in charge of defending Legacy space while the campaign is going. And they were summarily wiped out by Stain Russians, it looks like. Red Alliance here with Afterlife. These are all definitely Russians. And what's really cool, and this other group here, Ferrata Victrix, but also, this is what surprised me, AAA is in there.
Yeah, I'd seen a
AAA is the new corp. That's exciting.
Yeah, I'd seen a while ago that Russian Thunder Squad decided to reform AAA, but
that's the first time I've seen somebody in AAA that wasn't RTSQ. So I guess they are actually trying to get some more people together.
Yeah, I'd seen a few battle reports with other AAA corps, but this is the first time I saw a battle report with AAA and no RTSQ on it.
Yeah. AAA has a great tradition of being really good PvPers. They were around a long time, and they kind of went silent for, I would say, the last 5 years, 6 years. But for a long time, they were the lords of Catch and Impasse and that whole area. They're just a great all-around alliance. I think they had an English and a Russian side to them. I believe Havoc was in AAA when they were at their prime. Havoc is now in test. That's Manfred Sidious's corporation. But I think he was a part of AAA when they were at their peak.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right about that.
All right. So good to see AAA back. I hope they grow and grow. I'd like to see what they do. Next, we have a Titan that was actually destroyed. This comes from Fane Industries, or better known as Dark Side of the Eclipse. And let's see. The former Imperium Renter Corporation loses a Titan to Triumvirate. It's good to see them back, too. And this was in Outer Ring, which is north of Fountain. Fane Industries was a renter to both the Initiative Associates and Infensus, which is the renter group for Bastion.
Yeah, their CEO had run for CSM this past year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're one of the larger rental groups. Well, you'll find different rental groups might be, some of them are just people who want to live in Null. Some of them are crabbing operations for people who have accounts elsewhere or who don't want their PvP characters crabbing. Like that last thing is something you'll find a lot with NC and PL guys.
Looks like the system he was taken out in was just a little hidden away system there.
Yeah, but Fane is a very large renter corp that was actually a lot of mains, which is something I usually don't expect from renters.
Mm-hmm.
And after Fountain got overrun, they decided to start their own alliance and move to Outer Ring and live there for. I'm not sure what their future plans are, but for the time being, they're living there.
Okay. Fane Industries. PJ Hustle. Oh, yeah. I recognize that name. All right. Well, I wonder if we'll hear from him. Maybe we can get in touch with him.
And
okay.
Triumvirate, they're an alliance. They're one of those alliances where activity with them depends on how active certain figures in the leadership are. It's not as famous as Black Legion's dying and coming back just based on Elo, but of course Triumvirate has died and come back a few times as well over the years.
Yeah. We've had like a few FCs that sat in and kept them alive while their main commander was gone. Like Captain Archer was a big FC for them 2 years ago.
At this point, I think, because Triumvirate used to have, it was Archer, Garst, and there was one other guy, and they kind of had a Triumvirate leadership. And I know the other guy left first, then Patrick Archer dipped, and Garst went on deployment or something, and that kind of killed them off for a while.
Yeah, Garst is their actual leader, and the Archer was the one doing a lot of the work at the time. He had a kind of a breakup with his corporation, I think. But yeah, so that's Triumvirate. Good to see them back. Excuse me. Okay, couple more things. We want to make a correction. Yesterday we reported that Trigger Happy owned a Keepstar, and we even showed you this picture here of a Keepstar in the system with their name on it. That is the test server. So this was posted on TIS. It was a gag. It was picked up as news, and we didn't corroborate it with the author. So our mistake, but Trigger Happy does not own a Keepstar. And that it was confusing because I thought, how did they get a Keepstar? You don't just get a Keepstar, you have to put it up, and usually we hear about it, and sometimes it's contested. So I thought it was a little strange, but we went with it anyway, and that was a mistake. They do not have a Keepstar, and they are being bared down on by Fraternity in the North, and we'll have more news on what's going on in the North as it develops. One more update. We want to say that yesterday we reported YGG. Fortizar armor timers are today. They have formed up with Dread Bomb and Siege Green and Red Alliance. Successfully defended 2 Fortizar timers. Gorn,
Yeah.
can you make sense of that?
Yeah, Dreadbomb and Siege Green working together makes a lot of sense. Dreadbomb is in Wrecking Crew. They might not be one of the traditional Wrecking Crew alliances like Honorable Third Party or Purple Helmeted Warriors, but they're at this point one of the core alliances, and I believe Seto is actually one of the coalition directors now. And Siege Green is also very close with RC, so them working together is completely normal, but Red Alliance is the unusual thing there.
Yeah.
Red Alliance had been part of Fire Coalition, which Dreadbomb had been since they decided they weren't going to participate in the war. They had been doing a lot of stuff, attacking Legacy and Fire Coalition space. So, and now now Red Alliance is friendly with the Imperium, like in that battle report with the Stain Russians fighting Army of Mango. It looked like it was Red Alliance leading it, since it was one of their guys in a monitor.
Yeah. So they're doing work out there in Esoteria for the Imperium, and that's their latest thing. I do want to make a recommendation from a Goonswarm guy, and this is Ancient Gaming New, and he does a great job summarizing 19 weeks of war. And this is someone I would consider a friend, Wilhelm Arctus. I probably screwed up his name. I screw up everybody's name. But he is a terrific writer, and he just kind of puts things out there and goes through it. He definitely has a point of view. He's going for his team, but he draws up a lot of stuff that makes this really comprehensible. This guy's holding the thing there, and gives you a lot of really good information in a short period of time. So I highly recommend, and I will post Wilhelm. So if you have a chance to read his blog, you should read it. It's pretty good. And I just wanted to put that in there. All right. That's all we have time for today. Do you have anything else, Gregorian?
I don't know of anything else.
Yeah. And Murray, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time.
No problem.
All right, guys, stick around. We'll refer you to somebody else. If not, we will see you tomorrow on Talking in Stations. Thank you for watching.